Talk about low-budget flights, no food or movies? I'm out of here. I like running better. Welcome back, YouTube viewers, to another video. So, today's video is a review of The Wild Robot, Dreamworks' newest film. And first, I want to say that this will contain spoilers. So if you haven't seen it yet, which, why haven't you? I'm just going to say right now, without spoiling anything, this is one of DreamWorks' best. I thought that they would. I don't even know what to. Okay, I have to get into a lot of spoilers to say why it's so great, but all I'll say now is that one, you definitely should see this. I mean, it had a pretty good opening weekend, but we better keep up that pace. We want DreamWorks to make more movies like this. The visuals are outstanding. The acting is very good. The movie is genuinely funny. It's pretty well paced. Few people had some pacing issues, but I thought it was pretty good. It's a very touching film. That's definitely a good thing about it. It's just, and it's not afraid to go a little dark sometimes, but it never goes too far. I mean, and do not worry, and the way it goes it's not gonna be Puss in Boots: The Last Wish and have you and talk about the value of life in light of your own mortality. It's not that kind of film, but it's really great. So if you have seen it, well, here is my review of The Wild Robot. So of course, there are the two main characters, Roz and Brightbill. I just want to say that I really like the opening scene of this movie. So Roz just crashes onto this island. She goes around trying to help different animals, wanting to complete some kind of task, and then boom, title card. I like when the title card just drops. Something that a pet peeve I have about a lot of modern movies is that they always save the title card until the very end, which really annoys me. Animated films don't do that though. They sometimes do, but stuff like How to Train Your Dragon. Although I think How to Train Your Dragon that whole trilogy is probably the one time where I actually liked it. But I just like the way this one goes. We get to slowly see her trying to understand how this works, talk to the animals, and yeah, I like how the animals, they're not talking animals. It's just that Roz stays in some kind of sleep type mode for a really long time, slowly absorbing all the information for the animals across her until she's finally able to understand and speak with them. It's a nice touch. But she accidentally kills a goose family, which I like that it doesn't ever. I mean, it kind of says this later, but I like that it just shows her look at the dead feather of a bird, and that's all you need to see. It's able to This movie's able to communicate things with the visuals, not necessarily dialogue. So yeah, she finds only one little baby goose survived from this family and has to take care of him. And she meets a fox named Fink who helps her raise the goose and says that the goose better be able to fly and swim by fall or winter when the migration of the geese happens, or else he's gonna die. He's born to be a little smaller and weaker than the other geese, so his chances are not very good at all. And Roz is initially just doing this because she wants a task. She's told this is her task. She was designed to help people. And so she's able to raise him and is told that you can't just give him a number for a name. It has to be personal. It has to mean something. So she names him Brightbill. I like that name. And even though in first she just raises him because she has to, she genuinely cares about him. She sees him as her son, even though she's a robot. I also like how when it shows Brightbill grow up and get bullied by the other geese for being some kind of freak, that part of that reason is since his mother was a robot, he acts like a robot sometimes. He goes beep boop beep boop. It's a nice touch. And Roz's whole character arc throughout this film is just really touching. I don't really want to get into too much because it'd be kind of hard to do it without talking about a bunch of other stuff, but the whole ending where the other robots from the factory she was built and come to get her, it was all really well done. And I just want to say that one thing I like about this movie is that it's not the world is some kind of dystopian future where people have to solely rely on machines. Maybe it is, but it doesn't say that because that's not what matters. In fact, we never even hear humans talk. The only times we see them is where Roz finds this video made by the company that built her, where it just shows some humans and says how these Rosm robots help humans. And then you just see the backs of a few humans in their lab, I guess, when they get an alert that Roz is still online. It's not, this is kind of like DreamWorks' equivalent of Wall-E and the Iron Giant, that robot with the soul thing. And honestly, this has gotta be my favorite of these three films. And honestly, I think they just get better as they went along. The Iron Giant was a really nice. Well, one, it was really nice how I liked how it was took place in the 50s to be like an old B movie, and all the visuals were incredible, and it was still a very good movie. Wall-E was Wall-E, we all know about that. But then this is just it's different. And I like the whole bit in the climax where she helps all the animals during the winter and saves all their lives. And she almost dies, but she still does it because she has to protect them. It's really touching. Then there's Fink, the main comic relief character of this movie, voiced by the Mandalorian. The only reason I even knew it was him is because I can vaguely hear that Mandalorian voice. But what I like is that even though also he sounds like Ben Schwartz for some reason, which is really weird. Although do not worry, he's not as annoying as Movie Sonic. I actually found him to be quite funny. And this is, as I've been pointing out before, this is one of the few DreamWorks movies where it feels like nothing was compromised to make this. Yes, there are celebrity voice actors, or just actors really. Well, Mark Hamill's a celebrity voice actor, but they don't feel shoved in. They just feel like, oh yeah, these are the people who play these characters. That's it. And the whole movie just flows very well. It doesn't have any stupid, weird, crude humor. I mean, sure, that type of humor worked for Shrek, but it doesn't really translate well into other films. I mean, I think we can all agree the How to Train a Dragon trilogy is absolutely superb, but these side characters are not funny. I honestly say they got better on my rewatch, but they're still not very good. The humor here is actually quite funny. Yeah, I think it's just a really entertaining character. I like how at first that he just pretty much it seems like he just wants to take advantage of Roz and I don't know, maybe even eat Bright Bill. But I guess over the months he spends with them, he actually cares about them. So he is genuinely their friend. And when all the Roz gathers all the animals to safety in that little hut, and they all still want to eat each other because the circle of life, Fink yells at them that she saved all of you. I understand that we all want to eat each other. That's the way this goes. That's the way nature works. But just for this winter, can't we all live together for one short time? Or else, not if we just go out back there, we're all gonna die. And yeah, this movie does not skirt around death at all. I guess DreamWorks just does not mind that concept, which, I'm fine with it. I don't really care. And hey, when I went to see this in theaters, it was completely packed. I think there were only 2 empty seats, and everyone seemed to really enjoy it. The parents, the 20-something-year-old animation fans, the kids with their parents. And yeah, everyone got a lot of chuckles out of Fink's jokes. But then there are also the other animals. We see different animals throughout the film, like this British beaver, who shows up occasionally, who's pretty funny. This family of possums, which, gosh, DreamWorks is just really good at making jokes with talking possums, huh? But I think it's all been mentioned before that the joke about one of the possum kids seeming to have been killed, and then okay, it turns out he was fine later. But that is just so weirdly dark. I like it. This movie has a lot of dark humor, but it works. This doesn't necessarily feel like other DreamWorks films, but it simultaneously feels like only DreamWorks could have made this. That is really weird. I like some other characters too. Bill Nye, Davy Jones, and Rattlesnake Jake from Rango. He voices this old geese who helps Bright Bill fly, and he's not in it a ton. And his introduction is a little rushed, but I didn't mind it. He fit the story very well. And there's this bear voiced by Mark Hamill, who I knew Mark Hamill was in the movie, but I was just waiting to hear his voice because I didn't know he was going to play the bear. And for a while, the bear doesn't actually speak. He just makes growls, which that was something I'm very happy they did. You don't actually hear him speak until all the animals are gathered together and have to survive together. And either Mark Hamill's age is starting to show, or he was doing a bit of a different voice. It's probably a mixture of both. And then there are this movie's visuals, so it sort of follows in the footsteps of Puss in Boots: The Last Wish, except the key difference here is that this is not trying to look as 2D but in 3D like that was, and it's not trying to be as flashy, which fits. That would not have worked for this story. It's more like that style as in just the kind of colors it uses, which this movie is just stunning. It's not the best looking DreamWorks movie, but it's top 5 for sure. I really like the look of this, and it's just all the visuals from the lighting to each different location, the way everything moves around. It's all really great. The team at DreamWorks really outdid themselves with this one. It's too bad this is DreamWorks' last film that will be animated exclusively in-house. After that, after this one, starting with Dogman, which does look really good to be fair, their movies will be partially animated at DreamWorks Animation, but also working with Sony Pictures for some reason. And that won't affect the actual writing or directing of the films, but it's still sad. But yeah, I mean, just look at this image of Roz with all these leaves blowing behind her. It's just beautiful. I can definitely tell they put a lot of effort into this one. But I also have to talk about the people who made this, of course. This was solely written and directed by Chris Sanders. He and Dean DeBlois wrote and directed the first How to Train Your Dragon. He left the sequels purely up to Dean. And Lilo and Stitch. And he also had a pretty big part in the animation of The Lion King and Aladdin. I think it's safe to say this guy is pretty talented. He also directed The Croods, but I haven't seen The Croods, and maybe I'll see it someday, but I'm not that interested in it. So this is his first movie that is just his movie. It's not a co-production, and wow, he really outdid himself. I am superbly impressed with the script and the story and everything. I'm genuinely surprised I didn't cry. Lupita Nyong, I don't know how to pronounce that, did a really good job voicing Roz. I like how she's able to sound robotic, but is still able to sound somewhat human. I don't know how they did that. Must use some kind of filters, but they did a really good job with that effect. The guy who did the music, Chris Bowers, did a fantastic job. Nothing is super memorable in the soundtrack, but much like Puss in Boots: The Last Wish, the same thing applies. But it just fits the tone very well. It really amplifies each scene, which is definitely an important thing. I was a little disappointed when the credits for this movie came out before the film released, and I saw that Hans Zimmer and or John Powell were not doing the score, but this guy did a really good job, so I can't complain. Also, yeah, Pedro Pascal, who voiced Fink, did such a great job. I liked Mark Hamill in this one. I voiced the British Beaver, and that is a picture of Dean DeBlois. As I mentioned, he and Chris Sanders did Lilo and Stitch in the first How to Train Your Dragon. So what I noticed is that Chris Sanders got an executive producer credit on the How to Train Your Dragon sequels. He wasn't involved with any of them as far as I know. He just got that credit for the sake of, he did the first one, let's give him credit. But here, Dean DeBlois is the one single guy to get an executive producer credit. I'm assuming he actually had some kind of involvement with this film's story, which, if he did, no wonder it turned out as well as it did. I think the guy who made the How to Train Your Dragon trilogy knows what he's doing, safe to say. Also, I just find this really funny. So, the final trailer for this movie, before it actually showed anything, it said, "From the studio that brought you How to Train Your Dragon and Puss in Boots: The Last Wish." I don't think DreamWorks has ever done that before. They've had that in text, so they've never actually just showed clips from previous movies with the narrator and everything during trailers. I found that pretty funny. In conclusion, this movie is really bad because in the opening DreamWorks credit, it didn't show Kung Fu Panda, but did show the Croods and the bad guys. It just showed Kung Fu Panda instead of the Croods. Okay, jokes aside, this was astonishing. I was expecting something great. I was not expecting something to be as great as this was. Now, I'm not going to spoil where this falls on my DreamWorks ranking because my updated DreamWorks ranking, which will include this and 5 other films along with a few swapped places from my original video, will be uploaded on Sunday. I'm going to be happy to get to that one. I've been wanting to do that video for a while, so you can find out where that one falls once that video goes up. But in conclusion, The Wild Robot was simply fantastic. I hope it does well because look, Dogman looks really good and I'm excited for that, but that's going to be a comedy, obviously. The Bad Guys 2 could be good. After all, it's a DreamWorks sequel. I like the original if I didn't love it. We want DreamWorks to know that we want something like this again. Because this was another Puss in Boots: The Last Wish. This was another How to Train Your Dragon. Nobody wants another Trolls. Nope, which I'm pretty sure they stopped making those movies finally. No one wants another Kung Fu Panda 4. Who is asking for Kung Fu Panda 5? No one is. So, yeah, let's just hope. Because remember, this is how DreamWorks operates. They'll make some really good, then some really bad, then some really good again, and that's how it goes on forever. I think we are finally on their next batch of good films. So, that's all for now. And as always, keep on juicing.